7 p.m.
Yes.
Jonathan Nagel,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
Francine Miller.
Yes. Public comment and recognition of guests. We do not have any public comments this evening. Our first item tonight, new business, is oath of office and seating of a new school board member. Oh, he's hiding. I was like, where did he go? Okay, so Jonathan, if you want to come up. He's probably like, oh, Lord. Okay. I told Nate got to do a solo tonight. Okay, whenever you're ready.
I just read this? Okay.
It goes onto the back of the paper too, just.
Yeah. I, Jonathan Larson, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the officer of member of the Board of Education of Blue Ridge Community Unit School District Number 18 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual, and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As a part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Blue Ridge. I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school to advance the vision of Blue Ridge. And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Insomuch as there is no further business to come before this board, a motion for adjournment sine die is needed. Sine die.
So moved.
Sig.
Second.
Jonathan Yeakel.
Jonathan Nagel,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Sig Yeager,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
Francine Miller.
Shoot. Yes, and that was at 7:03, Christy. Okay. And now I need to call the regular board meeting to order at 7:03.
Sig Yeager,
Yes.
Jonathan Nagel,
Yes.
Josh Hahn,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Jason Nolan,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Francine Miller.
Yes. Okay, up first we have presentations and FFA officers.
Is this on or do I have to turn it on? Okay, cool. Well, hello, everyone. One of our officers is handing out our annual year in review, so it has all kinds of information about what we do over the course of the year. For those that do not know, I am Jacqueline Meisner. This is my 9th year here at Blue Ridge. I've really enjoyed my time being here. I guess if you want to count my coaching experience, I'm finishing up year 11 total because I coached before I got hired on full-time. We just came here tonight because we want to say thank you for your support and kind of give an update as to all the really cool accomplishments that these members have done over the course of this year. I first want to say thank you for me personally. This past fall, I got to represent our chapter our ag program more specifically, in San Antonio, Texas, at the National Association of Agriculture Educators, at their national conference. I've never had a chance to go to it. So being able to go and represent Blue Ridge there as the district or region for outstanding middle/secondary ag program was incredible. Getting to see some of the best professional development that they had to offer and meeting other ag teachers from across the nation was definitely an experience that I will never forget, and I'm greatly appreciative of you guys supporting me being able to do that. I also am finishing up one of my years as the District 4 FFA Board Director. I have 1 year left, and then I'm stepping down from that position. So I get to work with the 72-ish schools in District 4 Illinois FFA, and I don't even know how many teachers. There's way too many to count. And I get to coordinate all kinds of different policies and procedures for Illinois FFA with those different ag teachers. Tonight I had an emergency board meeting with Illinois FFA with figuring out some things that are coming up and down the pipeline. I also had an opportunity this year to serve as our Section 16 advisor since we had the Section 16 president. So that allowed me to work with 5 other students not from our school, helping them grow as leaders within our organization. So I just want to say thank you for all that you allow my students to do, but also me to do and grow professionally. And I want to turn it over to my students.
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. My name is Cadence Wooten, and I'm currently a senior at DeLand Weldon High School. But all 4 years, I've had the opportunity to be bussed over here and be part of your guys' ag program, and I absolutely could not thank you guys enough. This program has built me from a young, shy kid in the back of this classroom who couldn't talk to others to now being able to public speak in front of people. I've grown throughout my whole time within the FFA. And I have been able to have the opportunity to serve as our chapter president this last year and our section president. With that being said, I would like to announce that I am now a 2024-2025 Major State Office candidate. So thank you guys for all of your support. Without your support of being able to let me go do things and funding everything that we do, as well as Ms. Meisner, I would not be able to have that opportunity. With that being said, I would like to introduce our new president, Carmen Ellis.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Carmen Ellis, and I am currently a junior here at Blue Ridge High School. I am currently serving as the president of our chapter, and I'm super excited for the upcoming year. To start us off, I would like to thank the school board and staff on behalf of our chapter. With your support, we will have the ability to have 92 students enrolled in agriculture education between 8th and 12th grades. We have 46 unduplicated high school students and 94 FFA members, including our 2 graduated members who have earned their American FFA degrees. Students took classes in our 8th grade Ag Exploratory, Intro to Ag, Vet Science, Conservation, Ag Mechanics, Ag Business, and our independent study class, which is our SAE class, where they focus solely on FFA and their supervised agricultural experiences. Over the summer, we have several events going on, starting with Heritage Days at the end of May, going into Officer Retreat, Market on the Squares, and State Convention. We are super excited for all of this and can't wait for the upcoming year. Now I'm going to introduce our current officer team. Here we have our Vice President, Presley Hardesty, our Secretary, Drake Hardesty, our Sentinel, Ava Paulin, our Historian, Ava Franzen, and we have 2 members that are not here tonight due to other obligations that they have, and those students would be Kelly Weiss, who is our reporter, and our treasurer, Tyler Holtz. Now, before we move on to our other officers introducing themselves and some upcoming things, I would like to talk about our National Chapter Award. Each year, we complete the National Chapter Award applications, and we do 15 activities that fall under 3 categories: building communities, strengthening agriculture, and growing leaders. Our Growing Leaders Committee holds our College and Career Fair, where we have almost 20 colleges and careers in attendance. Students also had 2 20-minute sessions in small groups to learn more about future opportunities. This is usually held during National FFA Week in February, and it's usually a very good success. And as it has been in the past, it was this past year as well. Our Building Communities Committee has partnered with the Clinton FFA chapter and expanded a program that we started last year promoting shopping at local small businesses in DeWitt County. We contributed to over $6,100 going back into our communities. Finally, our Strengthening Agriculture Committee holds our FFA Barnyard, where elementary and high school students have gained hands-on experiences with agriculture through our FFA Barnyard and Ag in the Classroom activity. Now, I'm going to hand it over to the other officers that are here in attendance to share some of their things that we have done over the past year.
Hello everyone, my name is Presley Hardesty and I am a current junior at Blue Ridge High School, and I am now serving as our current chapter vice president. And I'd like to go over all of our awards that we have gotten this past year. So in 2024, we were announced 9th overall in the state for FFA, and we are now waiting for results for this past year, which will be announced at state convention in June. And this fall, we had 2 former Blue Ridge FFA students receive their American degrees, Gracie Schaefer and Caleb Southern, and they are the first 2 Blue Ridge students to have earned all 5 FFA degrees. We were also named a 3-star chapter at the national level, which is about in the top 5% of the nation. We were officially recognized as the Region 4 Middle/Secondary Outstanding Ag Program. Cadence Wooten was named a runner-up at State Awards Day, and Cadence was also named top 10 section president and a candidate for major state office. Tyler Holtz was named the Section 16 Star in Ag Placement, and Drake Hardesty was named as the Section 16 Star in Agribusiness. Miss Meisner was named the Section 16 Golden Owl for this school year, and Blue Ridge was named Section 16 Premier Chapter. Blue Ridge was named Section 16 winner in each of the 3 areas of building communities, strengthening ag, and growing leaders. Blue Ridge was also the gold rating for FFA, and we were a national finalist, meaning we were in the top 10% in Illinois FFA out of 389 FFA chapters. We have 4 students earning their state FFA degree: Carmen Ellis, Mercedes Manuel, Ava Pollen, and Gavin Friel. And all these recognitions mean to me that our chapter is trying their hardest to fulfill what we have been given, and trying our best in each competition with our SAEs and all of our leadership events. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Drake Hardesty. I am a sophomore here at Blue Ridge High School, and I am serving as your chapter secretary. I will be talking about the plot and its purpose. The FFA plot is a 20-acre plot out there in Bellflower. We do tests on different crops, corn and soybeans specifically. This year, our plot managers are me, Drake Hardesty, Ava Pollen, and Brooklyn Hardesty. Our last year's plot managers were Gavin Friel, Ava Pollen, and Drake Hardesty. The test that we're doing this year is a high-yield plot with 2 different corn hybrids. We are putting different fertilizers and everything on the plot to do everything. I've enjoyed learning about the different crops and everything, how to do tests with the plot, learning how to operate the harvester, the planter, and everything that goes into farming. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ava Pollen. I am currently a junior here at the high school. In this upcoming year, I'll be serving as our chapter sentinel. So one of the many activities we do and strongly believe in is community service. You guys do so much for us, and we think it's important to give back to you guys. In Blue Ridge, FFA offered about 8 different community service projects giving back. Some include holiday cards for soldiers overseas, Working Heritage Days, which is also coming up, volunteer at MumFest with Clinton FFA, baking cookies for teachers to say thank you, our food drive, and the Mansfield Homecoming Parade, working with the kids, and that's just to name a few. In 2024, students logged over 850 hours of community service in AET, which is our record-keeping system that each student has. The volunteer impact for our community is about $180 that students are giving back. And then my favorite community service activity that I've done personally is baking those cookies for the teachers, because we also write letters for them sharing the different impacts that they make for us individually and the impact that they make within all the students. Another topic I will be talking tonight is about the different contests that we do, CDEs and LDEs, which is a career development event and a leadership development event. This past year, we competed in around 20 events. We had a third place Creed speaking speaker, placed highest placing in over 10 years. We had a first place section parliamentary procedure for 9th year in a row, and we also placed third at districts. We had a second place conduct a chapter meeting team, 9th year advancing to districts, a 4th overall section extemporaneous speaker. Cadence was 10th overall in state in the Ag Ed contest, placed in the top 10 in all team events. And one of my favorite events as well that I do is the soil contest, where we compete, basically seeing if soils are good for farming in or if they're just the best quality that we can have. So thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Ava Franzen and I am currently a sophomore at Blue Ridge and I will be serving as your chapter historian. The thing that I will be speaking to you guys about tonight is our supervised agriculture experience. That is our SAEs, that is similar to a work-based learning. Students keep records on jobs, they work businesses they have created, science projects, ownership of animals or plants, and foundational skills they are working on. 100% of the high school students have some form of an SAE. 2 8th graders chose to keep SAE records this year as well. 13 students competed in 14 proficiency areas. 5 students advanced to district, 3 advanced to state. 1 state runner-up, Cadence, in outdoor recreation, kept records on her time working as a camp counselor at Allerton. 1 student, Presley, through her SAE, has grown her ag education record book, where she plans, organizes, and coordinates her classmates in ag in the classroom activity for over 230 elementary students that come through the FFA barnyard. I also have an SAE. This is where I keep records on my vegetable production farm girl produce business, where I sell sweet corn and other vegetables. Thank you.
And just one last time, guys, I just want to thank you all for your support that you give all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for coming this evening. I do appreciate that. And if you haven't had Ava's corn, you're missing out. I'm just letting you know that. Okay, next we have the BACC student recognition. Good luck following that.
Yeah, no kidding. Doesn't look like either one of them was able to be here tonight. I know there were sporting events and other things going on, but obviously we send a group of students to BACC every year, and there's, I don't know, what are there, 13 or 14 schools from the area that send them there. They have over 700 students in their programs. And every year they have an honors night where they recognize their top students in their different classes. And we had a couple of students this year who were recognized at honors night. Maya Laidley is a senior, and she was in the criminal justice program. And she was given an award for her class. It was called the Justin Gale Memorial Hustle and Heart Award. The teacher spoke just at Maya's work ethic and how dedicated she was to the class. The other student that was recognized was Josh Berkler. He's a second-year student at BACC. Last year he did the fire science class. This year he's doing the EMT, and he was fire science student of the year last year, and this year he was the EMT student of the year. So he's really thriving over there, and that's the career path that he's going down as well. So very proud of our BAC students for sure. So, thank you.
Thank you. Up next is the annual athletic update.
I'm going to talk about the junior high athletic program, because not only do I do assistant principal in Mansfield, but I'm also the athletic director. Just a few different things I like that we're seeing some consistency between our junior high and high school sports with some of the coaches in both the junior high and high school. It's really going to help our kids out all the way through. This year, our conference did realign, so now we are down to 8 teams in our conference. Bloomington, Corpus Christi, and Normal Epiphany are no longer in our conference, and GCMS was added. And then 4 times a year, I meet with all of those conference ADs, and we discuss our programs, our schedules, tournaments, any of the IESA regulations and changes that we have need to put in place. Softball, we had really good numbers this year. We had 25 girls go out for softball. Most of those were 8th graders and 6th graders, or 7th grade. We had a few. We played B games, which is like 3 extra innings after all of our regular season games, which allows those kids more opportunities that may not get to play regularly all the time. Baseball, we also had 20 kids that went out, and it was a good mix between 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And we did have 2 kids come over from DeLand Walden to play on our baseball team. We also allow that for softball, but no one came over this year. They also played quite a few B innings last year, pretty much after every game, just to get more extra playing time. Girls basketball, we're working on getting girls to go out. We're going to have 1 8th grader next year. So I'm hoping we can get some more girls to go out. We do have a pretty good 6th grade class and a pretty good 5th grade class currently that I'm hoping to have a lot of athletic girls that will go out for the sport. Coach Zach and Josie Paraguay are great with them, and I'm really upset to be losing Zach to the high school, but he's still going to stay and help out with us. They're actually starting to hold basketball camps next week for our junior high kids, and then in a couple weeks for the high school and younger kids, and then are also taking some of our junior high kids to Greenville to a summer camp there where they can get some games in. Boys basketball, we didn't win a lot of games this year, but we did see a lot of growth from where we started to where we ended up. They did a lot of work on working on their fundamentals and learning and running their plays, and they're looking at doing some open gym times in July. Mrs. Wiedemann did a great job with her cheer program. She actually has cheer tryouts for next year tomorrow after school because they do a lot of their work in the summer because all of our cheerleaders usually do at least 1 or 2 or 3 other sports or events at our school. Mrs. James does a great job with our scholastic ball program. We had varsity and JV teams, and our 2 top scorers this year were actually both 6th graders. So hopefully that's good for our program coming up, and they continue to go on. And most of our scholastic ball kids are also involved in play, other sports, soccer, all kinds of things. Volleyball, we always have really good numbers for volleyball. We had 12 8th graders, and then 12 6th and 7th graders combined. And we always hold our showcase for the conference for 7th grade every year towards the end of February on a Saturday. It's pretty much all-day event. Track, we had a low numbers. We only had 6 boys go out for track this year, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade total. We did have 18 girls. So I'm hoping with the new addition of the track next year and coming over for track practices that we'll start getting a lot more excitement with more kids coming out for track. But a lot of those kids also do travel baseball, travel softball, and are trying to work all the track in as well. And they just wrapped up their season Saturday at sectionals in Ridgeview. So all of our sports are officially wrapped for the season. And we're already ready to go for next year with all the schedules, athletics schedule's done, officials hired, cheer tryouts starting tomorrow, softball starting July 28th, baseball starting August 4th. So we're ready.
And the high school update will come next month.
Okay. All right, up next is communications. First thing, the IESB liaison talking points is in your board packet. And then we also have the IESB division governing meeting June 3rd at 6 p.m.
And that would be, maybe Jonathan, I think you've attended that in the past. Is that correct? Jonathan Yeagle, maybe? Okay. If that's something that you can do, or if anybody else is interested, please let Christy know, and she can get you registered for that. I believe the RSVP is by the day before.
Okay. Next is committee reports.
No meetings this month.
Okay. And then administrative reports.
And I'll just do a quick recap. Our summer programming looks a little bit different this year. So we will have the Bridge program that'll be offered one day for just a few hours for students, select students coming from 8th grade to 9th grade who might need a little extra time for transition. So they'll get to meet with all of the teachers that they'll see during their freshman year. We have ESY programming going on, extended school year, for those students with an IEP that requires summer work. And those students and their teachers will be meeting sporadically throughout the summertime to spread that learning opportunity out. We also have some summer math boot camp going on here at the high school. Mr. Mintier is going to put a few collections of students together to work on strengthening skills. And then we also have, back by popular demand, would be Kindergarten Jumpstart, which will be held, I think we said, starting August 4th. So half of the kindergarten class will come August 4th and 5th in the morning, and the other half will come the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. So they get to see the surroundings, go through the lunch line for pretend, and get acclimated with their teachers.
Okay. Mr. Payton?
Talk about the strategic plan now. Well, you have my board reports, but I'm going to jump into the strategic plan just so that way we can kind of get through some of that information because there's quite a bit there. So hopefully you had a chance to review some of that. I am going to go through it a little bit by basically through each goal and sub-goal and just to make sure that you're aware of everything there, and then also an opportunity just to think through, and if you have any specific questions or, you know, when we finish, are there any potential changes or things that you think could be added or something to explore? So we'll start with goal one. Goal one is going to be our student achievement and curriculum goal. You can see the goal that's listed there. Sub-goals are kind of the areas that we really want to kind of dive into. The first one is really exactly what it says, growing an examination of our data to impact instructional decisions. So that's a huge piece of what we do, right? Taking all the information that we get from assessments, whether it's formative assessments or summative assessments, looking collectively at grade levels and across subject areas, sometimes if we're able to do common assessments, looking at that information, analyzing it, and deciding what direction we go. What did students actually learn? So just really diving more into some of those practices to make sure that we're continuing to support and grow. Teacher Collab's a big part of that. Professional development will be a big part of that. Goal two is, sub-goal two is continuously evaluate and monitor current curriculum and programming. It's a pretty clear goal. You know, we just want to make sure that we have like a really streamlined review cycle of how we go about looking at those ELA curriculums and math curricula and different high school course curricula. Just making sure that we really want to create some type of a key document that allows us to see things very clearly when we need to start exploring potential adoptions, what we've done with adoptions, just kind of give us a historical and then kind of give us a roadmap moving forward, if that makes sense, something that's a little bit more laid out. And then goal three is providing all students with opportunities for enrichment and intervention. So, you know, the last couple of years, we've really tried to solidify our MTSS practices. That's multi-tiered system of supports. And really what that does is kind of look at all students and kind of where they need support. So we do interventions when students aren't quite meeting that on levels area where we want them to be. We have interventions in place, but we also want to make sure that we're really focusing on, too, those students that need enrichment, that need extra, that need that acceleration process, just to make sure that we're continuing to unlock every student's full potential. And so that's a conversation that we'll talk a lot about. You know, obviously these are sub-goals, right? So they're kind of big ideas at times. And the next 5 years will be times that we actually are able to sit down as admin teams and as ILT and so on to really develop specific action plans. So, you know, we've got some general ideas of where to go, obviously, but as we kind of get into the nitty-gritty, we'll have really clear action plans behind each one of these sub-goals. Goal area 2 is district community relations. So some of the big things there, one of them is sub-goal 2.2. I think we had some conversation recently about that, but that idea is really looking at just strengthening communication between district and community, just looking at what potential areas are out there. What are some things that we can do a little bit differently just to promote that positive and consistent narrative? You know, highlighting district initiatives, highlighting different programs, highlighting staff and students, right? What are those things that we can do? You know, when I think about that, it's about promoting those district successes, providing transparency and engagement, and building trust, you know, trust and pride in our community. And so those are kind of some of those key things that will come up. You know, I think of like a district storytelling campaign, you know, some things that allow us to really highlight what we're doing, okay? So obviously there's work to be done there as far as, what makes that happen. So that is something that we will continue to explore. Goal 3, programs and services. I think I skipped one. Sorry, I skipped 2.1. That's just another kind of goal that we have in there that really is promoting engagement of stakeholders in learning and in extracurricular activities. So, how are we getting parents not only into buildings for, learning opportunities, instructional opportunities, those type of things, and involving them in that process. But number 2, even looking at the extracurricular side, how are we getting parents involved? How are we getting stakeholders and community members involved? Those are all kind of areas and things that we want to explore more of. I've heard some people talk about, like, when we have sporting events, for instance, what kind of crowd do we have? Are we bringing a lot of people to support our students who are working their tails off day in and day out at practices and on the court? How do we support them in that way? Some other things, programs and services, this is kind of where we talk about a variety of things. And remember, a lot of this information all came from stakeholder input that we received on that January date when Patrick Allen was here to kind of host that process. We heard a lot about exploring before and after school programming. That was a conversation that was brought up during that time. And so that's something that we want to look more into and see what kind of avenues and what channels that we have available to see if that's a possibility for us. 3.2, continue to explore academic enrichment. That's one that's going to come up over and over again. We want to see what opportunities are there to make sure that we are meeting all students and unlocking full potential, whether we have a student that's struggling or a student that's, just doing amazing work. And then 3.3 is monitor relevancy of current career connections for students. So just thinking about, when we think about career readiness, when does that process begin? Is that having conversations about careers in kindergarten and providing opportunities for them to experience things all the way into when they leave? And when I think about that too, even at the high school, what community partnerships do we have with businesses? What kind of things are we doing to prepare our students when they leave to make sure that no matter what direction they go, whether that's military or employment right away or trade school or four-year university, whatever that may be, that they have some of those tools and we're helping them be ready when they leave. Finances, this is really about kind of things that I will do specifically for sure. 4.1 really looks at the idea of just really preparing for contract negotiations. Next year is a big year. We have a contract negotiation that will take place. And so making sure that, I'm able to work with a finance coach and get support there and just continue to make sure that we have a competitive contract. For all staff members, while also making sure that we're balancing that district profile and that financial profile. 4.2 is just working with the finance team once again to ensure that all of our district funds are being invested to maximize those returns. There is a lot of money that comes in, and I think we've recently done some really good work with that with some of the bonds, putting those into places where they're receiving interest, and we want to continue to explore those type of things. That's just ways for us to make revenue or get that money that we can continue just to build and reinvest into different projects that we have. 4.3 will just be me presenting quarterly, right? Talking about budget reports, levy documents, and trying to be, do things in layman's terms as possible. That's going to be something a little bit new for me, and so I will continue to sharpen my skills in that area. Luckily, I'll have Dr. Sanifer and Mr. Randy Merker, who's a finance coach that I'll be able to work with as well, and it'll be awesome. We've already had a few meetings, along the way, and so looking forward to that. Last is facilities. So a couple of things there. We just want to make sure that we're continually, it talks about meeting twice annually as a whole group. And when I say that, really O&M supervisor, superintendent, and so on, but along with a facilities committee, to make sure that we are looking at both, short-term and long-term goals. Have something that's prioritized to make sure that we are taking the next right step, but also that we're thinking long-term too about what needs to be done. Those are basic, projects that are happening day to day, that are just ongoing maintenance type things, all the way up to big HLS projects, so making sure that we're not neglecting one or the other. It's an ongoing process that's happening, which will be super critical. Those are kind of the main broad goals and the sub goals that are there. So, I can take questions right now if you have specific questions that you've thought of. I would love to hear those. Also, are there potential areas to explore that maybe we did not discuss and that are worth bringing back to AC and having some dialogue about. Yep, I brought my paper for you, Sig, so.
Fabulous. No, I was just, goal one, where it comes down to the academics and
Yep.
What kind of, well, probably a lot of listeners out there don't know the metrics that are already used for evaluating things, but what kind of growth goal are you looking for academically? Like, can you put a number on it?
You put a growth goal. As far as an exact number, I mean, that's something that we could look at specifically as far as something measurable goes. I think that varies quite a bit. For us, we use some measures like, for instance, I mean, there's a lot of different benchmarking and a lot of different data points that we utilize from very different places. We'll look at AAR goals. We'll look at iReady. We look at district or classroom assessment type things that we do. Typically, we've been really strong with using iReady. It's been a tool that we've really utilized, which is a benchmark assessment that's done 3 times a year. Your son will do that. He does that annually. And so, one thing that's really nice about that is that it provides 2 different types of growth. You have a typical growth that we can look at, and you have kind of a stretch growth. So there's some different growths that you can look at. Now, the state is also coming out from ISB. There's some changes that are happening with some of the IAR testing and the accountability pieces and some of the proficiency scores, and those are still kind of in the, still being developed to an extent. So, we won't really see some of that until our first report card that comes out next year.
So then you'll be able to better establish a real,
yeah,
that
'cause it's gonna be
numerical
changing.
growth goal.
I mean, for us, right now when we talk about growth with iReady use, which the high school doesn't utilize as often, so it's a little bit different. We're always looking for kids to reach their typical growth, right? And so a typical growth kind of looks at an area where, if a student performs, let's say they score a 300, right? Those kids are then compared to every student across the nation that also scored a 300. They basically take that overall, and then what happens is they are able to give an average growth score, that a student that scores 300 where they would finish at the end of the year. And so we want them to be scoring at 100% of that. We want to make sure they're growing just like every other student, if not more, right? So it kind of depends on where they're at too. If a student is on level, we want them to grow at their typical growth goal, right? That's kind of in comparison with every other student in that average area. If they're below level, we want them to score at their stretch growth, because what that stretch growth does is that it helps close the gap, right? So it kind of depends on the student. Obviously, sometimes when kids are really super high, there's less, on a scoring mechanism, sometimes there's less room to grow as far as like a metric goes, as far as a number. Sometimes it's a little bit different because they're already at 100% or at 97%. So, when you look at that, they've already passed their standardized score. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see. It's always helpful for me when I've got a goal in mind.
Yeah.
Something that can just be, it's right there and you can see it like broadly across the school district, an average increase of whatever level of literacy or mathematical proficiency, that kind of thing. And then it just gives you something that you're really striving for the next, so many years.
That's something we can definitely look at and kind of talk about as an admin team. At the high school level, that would be just a conversation we need to talk about. I think for K-8, I can definitely think of some things that could be more measurable, in that regard. In high school, that would be a conversation that we would have to dial into a little bit more.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's already part of their administrative goals. They have a student growth goal that's part of their administrative evaluation, and so they have to put numbers on that. They're looking at, I want, this many students to be at their median progress goal when they hit halfway through the year. So they're doing that, but it's now that we're so technological with our iReady score, different kids have different benchmarks. Now it's different when you look at the state test, because the state tells you what every kid should score at to be meets or to be exceeds. But this is really a variable piece, because it depends on where you start, what that growth goal should be. So if I come in down here, I might be asked to grow up to this amount. If I start right here, I might be asked to grow to that amount. So kid to kid, it's going to be hard to compare, but we can look at them as an overall grade level, and that's what they do for their growth, for their own evaluations.
Gotcha.
This is to kind of tie into Sig's question, but are there going to be any SMART goals that are associated with the sub-goals that that show your timeline or show your what you're measuring against. And I know you can't do it with individual kids, that's
Right.
impossible, but with the broader strokes, are there going to be those SMART goals that go along with this? That actually have like a timeline or
Yeah.
the measuring?
That's something that we can talk about as an admin group and just kind of determine whether it's, yeah, we haven't talked tons about specific measurable goals as far as that goes. I mean, we kind of have these broader overarching goals,
Yeah.
and then as we kind of get into some of the action items, we can adjust those. But I don't think it hurts to have some specific measurable goals, in a way. We can still do some things that allow us to give us a general direction, right, for a goal specifically that we're reaching toward. So we can look at some numbers specifically for that. Because like you talked about already, I mean, we have some of that already in place, yeah.
And I think finance doing the quarterly, I think that's all very SMART goal as far as that's, some of them I think are harder to do. So I didn't know if you guys had a direction that you're already looking
Looking at, and you were kind of refining that down so it is more of one of the SMART goals. Well, it's
Yeah, there's kind
the
of two
acronym
thoughts,
SMART
and that's
goal,
kind of a
yeah.
process that we talked a lot about, Sometimes when it's too specific, then it really limits you and narrows you in a certain path. Now, sometimes that's good, right? Because we want to have those big rocks and things that we focus on, what I call it big rocks, 3 big things that we, typically that we'll really focus on and really drive everything. Sometimes when we have too many goals, right, it creates a lack of focus, right? So there's kind of 2 different thoughts there, but I think it helps for us to go back and look at some of those measurable pieces. For the academic piece, I definitely think we can look at some things. Because like I said, that's already existing within our principal evals. I mean, those things are there, right? So we're already creating growth goals and a variety of things that are there. Just kind of think about how we want to do that if we think about that through a district lens. Do we do a K-8? Do we do a 9-12? Kind of thinking about how we would break that apart.
Like looking at the school report card, which, see measurable progress there. That's a pretty big picture view, but that again is all changing.
It is all changing.
Now. So we aren't going to have a good thing to compare to for probably a year or 2.
Yeah. Well, and once again, it's a 5-year plan, right? So, I mean, we could think about some things currently that we know, right, that are familiar to us. But then we could also just think about what does it look like in a couple of years once the IAR and state testing has really maybe been more solidified, I guess, and we have a really clear picture of what that looks like. Could happen sooner than that, honestly. I think I just got an email today from ISB, and it had some information about IAR testing and performance descriptors and some of the proficiency language that's there. So it's a lot of it's still being completed and finalized. Any other thoughts or questions?
Another one on a different goal, on goal 2 for the communications aspect. What kind of avenues have you looked into using? Facebook, Twitter account, Truth Social?
I think we only have the goals now,
It is the sub-goal, right? So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on them, I think with that, as far as, you mean as 2.2, is that you're talking about the strengthening?
Yeah, I think, it's asleep.
Yeah, I think there's a
2.2.
variety of directions to go, to be honest, and it's really as a board, and those are conversations that we'll need to have along the way of what do we want to do and what directions do we want to go. Some of them are a little bit more cost effective, and some of them, like you talked about, when some other districts that we've been across that have hired individuals to come in and do things like that. So, I mean, I think there's a really big continuum of what impact do we want to have, It's difficult to create a narrative like that and to be consistent with a narrative like that if you're not a person that has that background and that branding background yeah, it's a lot of time. And so, there's a continuum of things that can be done, and it's just a matter of figuring out
which way to go
and what do we prioritize. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I feel when you were talking about like measuring goals, I actually scrolled down to this one. I'm like, well, this would be very hard to measure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't want to be like, well, last year we only had 10 people attend,
Yeah.
and this year it was 20. So, I mean, we've improved by 100%, goal achieved.
And
No, you
and
know,
some
it's,
of them are tough to be measurable
Yeah.
in that way, right? Or there's going to be some qualitative feedback and some things that we know. Like not everything has to be quantitative.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's nice. It's a little bit more objective potentially. People can skew numbers in a variety of ways, but I think we want to be able to look at information, you know, and have some quantitative and qualitative feedback if possible, and so we can really make sure that we have a, you know, we really know where we're headed and we get that good feedback. So yeah, some are going to be a little bit easier to measure, you know, when we talk about objectively in that way and quantitatively, but you know, some of them are a little bit more difficult in that way. Now, I think there are some things that we can do to help get some numbers and connect to it, but yeah.
yeah, I think that'll just be a goal forever. Times change, communication changes. How do people actually receive and actually hear the information?
Yeah.
Because you can put it out there now in many different ways, but is it getting across? I mean, you put it on social media. Does it show up on their feed?
Yeah.
We don't even know. I mean, I'm probably one of the most likers of Blue Ridge. If I see a Blue Ridge post, I'm going to like it every time because I know that helps, you know, pump it up. So I don't have a child in the school currently.
Yeah.
So even if it's talking about, you know, kindergarten registration, whatever, I just try to like it, thinking maybe that will help someone else see it.
Right.
Because you just don't know what people, they might follow us, they might not see it.
Yeah.
So
And yeah, I
it's
think
just
it's going to
constant.
it's going to take some learning, you know, I mean, even on my behalf too, like I know that people talk about when are you posting? When do those posts go out? Are they going out during a time when people are around their phone at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock? You know, there's lots of information out there and some best practices, and so we'll start to dive into it and see what we can figure out. And, but then again, we could also look at much bigger ideas too. So it's just really what you're wanting to financially support and where we think we get our most bang for our buck. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But we'll look into this. I'll come back with some ideas next month.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to hit a few things off of my report this month. Most importantly, so we were lucky enough to have Mr. Alex Mann come and teach one of our 8th grade exploratories this year. But next year, due to some of the expanded offerings at the high school, we're losing him. So we needed to come up with a plan for our 4th exploratory. So we've been working, we just had a meeting this afternoon with one of the representatives from Zello, which is our career explorations program that we've adopted in the district. And so Ms. Megan James is actually going to take on an extra class next year, and she's going to help us fulfill that for, just so you know, that extra, doing some of those career exploration things with Zello. And that Zello program covers, there's a group of standards that the state has put out called PACE standards that follow that in Illinois, but there's also some economic standards that she's not always able to hit in her 7th and 8th grade social studies classes, and so we're going to incorporate some of those things in there, especially in the area of like personal economics, like getting kids to learn about some of those, you know, personal finance things that they don't always get exposure to at this level. Additionally, we just had last Friday our 2nd annual real world simulation that we did with 4-H. It's really cool. The kids, speaking of personal finance, so the kids worked in class this quarter and picked a career path, learned about an income, and then they went into the gym and had to go and talk to different members from the community about insurance and clothing and food, and said, hey, at the end of the month, what's your balance look like? Are you in the black or are you in the red? And so just kind of getting those concepts of them about learning how things are like once you enter the job world. So it's a really great experience for our kids. And I think, you know, it's a lot of our young students don't really have a concept of money, and this kind of at least gives them a little taste of it. And then lastly, we're excited that we'll have promotion next Tuesday, the 20th at 9 o'clock in the gym. And then later that evening at 5:30, we're going to have a little celebration with our 8th graders that have been promoted thanks to Mrs. Becky Dodson and Mrs. Melissa Wisman for working with the Student Council to sponsor that event. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will also try to be fairly brief because I know Mr. Kirkton has some information he'd like to share with you guys. We highlighted our BACC students at the beginning. I wanted to mention our other extra program that we have. We have the CEO program, and we had Devin Ressler representing Blue Ridge in that program this year. And Devin did fantastic. He was a super representative for Blue Ridge. They had a Shark Tank event that they do every year where the kids get to pitch their business just like on the show, and Devin was the winner of that event this year, so very top student in that particular program. So very pleased with Devin and his work there. Big things that just happened. Gosh, it's been 10 days already, I guess, since we had prom. It was awesome. We had it at the Fisher, at the feed mill in downtown Fisher. That was a new venue for us, but it actually worked out really great. Almost half our staff served as chaperones for that, so that was really great to see so many people out there. But when the kids get dressed up, they act better, and they're just like grown-ups, and it's pretty cool to see them in that format. Last night, I know at least a couple of you were there at the Pops concert, and it was really great show to see our music on display for sure there. And now we are in the throes of wrapping things up. Today we had seen the first day of senior finals. They'll be done shortly. We've got graduation practice on Friday, and then the real deal on Sunday. I know you guys all saw the invite for that. That is this Sunday at 2:00 in the gym, and then our other students will have their finals next week as we wrap up the school year. So, one more thing I wanted to add. Something we learned about today is that we are finding ourselves in need of a credit recovery person to kind of monitor a credit recovery online option for a student, 1 to 3 students possibly this summer. It was not something that we anticipated needing, so it's kind of a new thing. Be a couple hours a week for probably about 6 weeks. So I think we're looking at about 12 hours, maybe 15 tops that we would need, and I think that's something that I just want to put it on your radar, and that we'll discuss in June, I believe.
Yeah, since it was not in time for the agenda, we can't have you improve anything, but if you're willing to give us a little nod in that direction, Brian will start to put that together for those students, work with the families, make sure we're all understanding with the plan, and then we'll come back and make it official. We'll ask you to open up a 12 to 15 hour summer position for a teacher, and then we'll probably hire at the same time. We already have somebody who's willing to do it, and some students that are in desperate need of that. Seeing some nods. Mm-hmm. Good, okay.
Okay. All right. Any questions for me before I pass you off to Jim? Great. I'll run before Sig speaks. Thank you.
He is the new Chelsea.
All right. I will try to be brief, as I'm hoping you're familiar with the proposal that was in your board packet. As I'm sure you're very well aware, vaping has kind of become an epidemic in our society, and Blue Ridge is no different than a lot of communities. We are struggling to try to actively address some of the issues that we are identifying here at the school. And in this proposal, we are kind of looking for potential solutions. So approximately a quarter of the BRHS 12th graders in the Illinois Youth Survey responded that they vape fairly regularly. Over 20 times, I think, was the metric number. So 25% of our student population said yes, they have vaped at least 20 times, and then a smaller percentage, around 20%, said they do nearly every day. most of these incidents, when they're happening here at the school, are happening in areas that aren't actively supervised. As you can tell, they're not doing it out in the library or in the hallways, but they are finding refuge in the bathrooms and locker rooms, as with most other schools. The issue that we are running into with this, Mr. Easter and myself, we are actively doing sweeps, we are checking bathrooms, we're doing all of that. We are asking teachers for help. There is some equity issue in the fact that only Mr. Easter and myself can go into the men's restrooms and check those during passing periods. Teachers are kind of in a weird position to go in there. So what a lot of schools have kind of moved towards, there's been a big technological push for vape detectors or sensors that schools have been putting into their building to help monitor these areas and be a little bit more proactive in that sense. This school year alone, we have had 10 documented instances of finding a student with a vaping device on them after getting a report that they were using said device in the school. Additionally, to those 10 that were confirmed that we were able to assess discipline for, there were 18 other teacher reports that we weren't able to follow up on because there wasn't enough evidence. It was, the time had gone and we just weren't quick enough. Devices like these sensors would help mitigate some of those issues. During my research for this, I reached out to local districts in the LPC as well as just area schools. 14 schools responded to me. 9 of the 14 already have detectors similar to the ones I'm recommending and Mr. Kramer is recommending as well. Of the remaining 5, 3 are in the process that I consider us in right now, where we're starting this initial investigation. They're very excited for me to share my findings after I do this presentation because I've done a lot of the legwork for them. Only 2 said that they were not interested in pursuing that. One because they had a bad experience with detectors in the past, and the other said they didn't have the staff to actively monitor it. I don't feel like that is the case here, and I'm hopeful that this might be something that we can have in the future. Obviously, the positive impact, first, is the health and safety of our students. There are many instances in which these vaping devices can cause some serious health issues, and we are dealing with the ramifications of those currently. But besides that, if we are looking to decrease bathroom loitering, if we are looking to get devices off campus and out of the school, having sensors will help do that. My other principal groups, word spreads very, very quickly as soon as they get up and as soon as the first people get busted, and numbers drop. You'll be able to walk into a bathroom and not have 15 kids in there during passing periods, but it'll be the 2 kids that actually need to go to the bathroom. So there are some real positive things. For the official proposal that got sent to you, I worked very closely with Dave Kramer, our IT guy, as he would be manning a lot of the installation and had a lot of the technical knowledge of what our system already has and what would work best. We looked at several different companies. Ultimately, after meeting with these companies virtually, Dave recommended this company called Zeptive, Z-E-P-T-I-V-E, because they have really good American-made technology. It is the only fully wireless system on the market, meaning we can move it to problem areas and locations as they pop up. The proposal that I had before you and submitted was for a total of 16 sensors that would be used here at the high school. That would blanket all of the bathrooms and the locker rooms. But because they're wireless, if we found, okay, they've moved into the weight room, they've moved into the football locker room, they're moving to the behind the stage in the old gym, they can be moved without us having to pay to run any additional cabling. Or any part of the install like that. They're very fluid. The current sensors in this, they have multiple notifications. They'll let us know via app, via email, and push notification for instances of vape, smoke, THC, if there is tampering on the devices, if there is, and this is an interesting one, aggression or over-occupancy. There are key words that these things can also auditorially record or recognize that would send a notification. Like if you hear kids chanting fight in a bathroom, it would push the notification, hey, there might be a fight happening here. They do work directly with timestamps, so we would be able to see on cameras, especially in passing periods, if a group of 4 or 5 students were leaving and there was a notification that it went off, we could go to the cams and say, okay, exactly at this time, this student was walking out. We would have enough then to, identify, search, use our metal detecting wand, and hopefully remove a device, which is ultimately the goal here, is to break that addiction as well as to get the devices out of the building so less kids come in contact, less kids wind up addicted as well. I also looked at some front-end education, working with Piatt County Mental Health with our new 8th-hour study hall advisory period. While 9th graders reported in the Illinois Youth Survey that 46 or 48% saw vaping as a very high risk issue. By the time they got to 12th grade, that had dropped fairly dramatically. And that might be because they're only getting this education in health, only in 9th grade. I'm sure it's talked about elsewhere and they're familiar with some programs, but this would also provide an additional front-end solution as well as the back-end monitoring that the vape sensors could provide. Ultimately, for the big end, the highest end, for the full 16 sensors, the 1-year annual license, the protective metal cages, and all that stuff, the cost for it would be $20,623 for the full setup. After that initial purchase, it would be an annual fee for the license of around $1,250. So it's that first big purchase, but then after that, that is a much more manageable bite. Ultimately, I hope to work to remove as many of these devices as possible and make Blue Ridge as safe for all students, and so they can go to the bathroom in peace. Okay.
Do I get to ask you questions?
Yeah.
I was just curious. So and this is really a question for everybody, what all do we do for teaching, when do we start teaching kids about the harmful effects of vaping? I mean, 5th grade, we used to have a DARE program. That was great, very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
When are we starting now? And did these, 9th graders 4 years ago in the middle of COVID, did they miss out on all that?
That is a great question. Yeah, same Piatt County Mental Health, maybe?
Too Good for Drugs comes in.
Does Growing Strong present
Growing
anything
Strong
on it?
presents, and that starts Growing Strong for some folks.
Mhm.
Too Good for Drugs is 6, 7.
It is covered in our 7th grade health curriculum also.
Yeah, but then at high school level, like they get it in health, and then they kind of taper off.
We talk about it even as early as kindergarten, K-3, because when we do our American Heart Association, we do our big fundraiser, we do a variety of things like drinking water, and one's about smoking or vaping, things not to do also, so they have kind of a list of to-dos and then not to-dos.
Mentioned in your report there were 3 instances of girls having seizures. How was that handled?
Okay. So at the time, we were unaware that the vaping had been the precursor for these seizures, so we handle them in a typical medical emergency with our safety and our alert process. It was only after this 3rd incident that we got word. They went to the emergency room, and the doctors essentially, I don't want to say coaxed it out of them, but got confirmation that all of the seizures happened within minutes after using a vaping device. So that was the common thread that they kind of said, yeah, this is a definite cause of these physical or these medical events.
Were those students, were there consequences at the school for this?
So the students that had the medical events,
Yes.
We did not find any devices on them at that time. It was a shared device from someone else. And the first two events, we had no idea as a school that those students had participated in vaping. After the third event happened and we had word from the parents and the medical professionals that, hey, this is what happened, Mr. Easter and myself, we interviewed students that were in the shared space with them and got confirmation. We were able to secure the device, and then the student that had the device, that provided the device to that student that had the medical event, did have disciplinary consequences. But the students that had the medical event did not officially.
There are consequences for that individual way beyond what the school can, can put in place, and I believe that they're learning a lesson way better than they would from an in-school suspension and a web quest on the dangers of vaping.
Great.
So once we're able to identify when this is happening, if you had a group of 4 to 5 students that were all in the restroom and they come out because the alarm went off and you guys were able to be there and whatever else, you're able to then wand everybody? And then,
Yes.
Okay. And once you find the device, if this is happening multiple times, how are we going to proceed from there?
With the same student?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a graduated discipline program that we have in place. The first offense is a 2-day in-school suspension for having the device, and from there we double it.
These are things that we have so many discussions about. Ultimately, our goal is education, and does an in-school suspension in its own educate the student on the dangers of vaping? Not necessarily. We hope, we have conversation with them, we have conversation with the parent. We do provide some materials. But yeah, how do you teach a kid the dangers of nicotine addiction and ultimately, through a conversation I've had with, another parent, almost what the kids need is to go to rehab and to detox and get off the device, because it's such an addiction. It can be so addicting, and many of them have learned to use these as a coping strategy for various things, and so ultimately, our goal is to try to figure out how do we help this kid kick this habit. And we have disciplinary measures in place. Does this in-school suspension or this in-school suspension or this out-of-school suspension, does that teach them anything? I don't know.
Yeah. At the very end of the proposal, I did kind of go through what our disciplinary handbook code says could be used based on the severity of the issue, going from Saturday school to 2 days of in-school to 4 days of in-school to out-of-school suspension. Ultimately, as Brian said, the goal is to try to kick that habit. Traditionally, we haven't recommended any out-of-school suspensions for nicotine or for vaping in that sense, because then they're at home unsupervised and probably doing it more. With the in-school suspension, they are under, they're monitored essentially from the moment they walk in until the moment they walk out. The supervisor walks them down to the bathroom, not during passing periods. They're in a supervised lunch period where they're not out eating with their friends. Their lunch gets brought to them. So while, it may be unintentionally forcing them to go, at least 8 hours without vaping again.
First off, I would like to thank you for doing such a thorough investigation into this. I really like the data that you got from other schools. It seems like it's a very positive use in preventing their hits as they've realized that the things are real and do detect them. I think this is a great idea. I can tell you that vapes are only getting worse. They're getting smaller. The parts that are getting used to be, more of them are being imported with crappy materials inside of them, not only electronically, but the stuff that's going inside of them. And we will see increased side effects, and a lot of them are THC, more than we think. So I would like to see us move forward with this. I think it's a great idea.
The benefit with these sensors as well is that it will notify us, not just if it's vape, but it'll say specifically, this does have a THC element in it. And then that's a whole different level of conversation regarding disciplinary consequences.
Sometimes you have to push it like 100
Yep,
times. He's trying to
Putting
push it.
sensors in the bathroom, is there any concern about privacy, this data leaving the building, being processed by some other?
It all stays in-house on our servers, so it's not going through a third party. The only data that would be collected would be if something is noticed, and then it's the push notification to the administrators here in the building. So I would assume that Brian and myself would probably be wired in or have that app installed on our devices, on our phones. But it wouldn't be like, hey, everybody in the school, go look at the bathroom right now. So that tries to mitigate any of the privacy concerns.
To piggyback on Jonathan's question, is it recorded? And are there audio records of bathroom visits? Because that would be a kind of thing.
As far as I know, there is no like physical audio recording of that. Like I said, it does notify if there is aggression, but it doesn't record the actual audio. It just kind of goes through it kind of just goes through the server and says that.
Any other questions?
Okay. And if you think of anything, Dave was going to be here tonight. I believe he has track or another event, but he has a lot of the technical expertise on this. So I'd be more than happy to send any questions you have about the technical aspects of that to him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then you have the remaining reports in your board packet. I don't think anyone else is here to give a report. Next up, we have the approval of consent items. There are no comments or questions on the consent items. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented.
So moved.
Jason?
Second.
Sid?
Jason Nolan?
Yes.
Sid Danger?
Yes.
David Harris?
Yes.
Jonathan Larson?
Yes.
Josh Vaughn?
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle?
Yes.
Francis Miller?
Yes. Lots of J's, huh, Christy? Uh-huh. And now, old business. Up first is appointment of board members to board committees. Let me pull that up. Hold on just a second.
Page 2022. Seriously.
So at last week's meeting, we talked about committee assignments. We have several committees. We have the policy committee, the finance committee, negotiations, insurance, facilities, and IASB governing board representative. At that time last week, for policy, we had David and Jonathan on there. Are both of you still interested in staying on? Jonathan Larson, we thought maybe you might be interested in policy, since you told us you liked to read policy last night. Yeah, so how the policy works is we get changes to policy sent to us. It goes to the superintendent. Hillary will mark on there of her thoughts. Sometimes there's a couple options that we could choose to change our policy, and then she'll push it out. So it's not just thrown at you with no kind of direction at all. There's at least a little bit of guidance, and as Jonathan said, sometimes there's a very short, and sometimes it's like, hey, it's 200 pages, good luck. Brian laughs okay. Okay, so we'll have both Jonathans and David on the policy committee. On finance, we had last week, it was me, Jonathan Yeagle, and SIG. And on any of these, if you feel like you would have an interest, there can be more than 3 people. Negotiations, we had me, SIG, and Josh. Insurance was Jason and David. Facilities was Jason, SIG, and Josh. And while we already have 3 on this, I didn't know if that was one that you would want to possibly be on as the facilities committee. And I'd assume the other 3 are still interested in staying on that. Everyone brings a very interesting background, I think, to this. Like, we'll have a very strong facilities committee right now. Can you add that, Christy? Can you add Jonathan Larson to facilities also? Okay, and then we have Jonathan Yeagle serving as the IASB Governing Board Representative for at least 1 more year. Maybe longer. Okay, so if everyone's happy still with their committee assignments from a week ago, we'll go with that and then add you to policy and facilities. Okay. Okay, so knowing that, I need a motion and a second to appoint the following board members to the Blue Ridge Community Unit School District number 18 board committees for the remainder of the 2024-2025 school term and the 2025-2026 school term as listed. So that would be David, Jonathan Yeagle, Jonathan Larson to the Policy Committee, Francie Miller, Jonathan Yeagle, and Sig Inger to the Finance Committee, Francie Miller, Sig Inger, and Josh Hahn to the Negotiations Committee, Jason Nolan and David Harris to the Insurance Committee. I'm trying to follow this. Jason Nolan, Sig Inger, Josh Hahn, and Jonathan Larson to the Facilities, Grounds, and Construction Committee, and Jonathan Yeagle as the IASB Governing Board Representative.
Nice job.
I need a motion. Okay, Jonathan Yeagle and Josh.
Yes. Jonathan Larson? Yes. Josh Hahn? Yes. Jonathan Yeagle?
Yes.
Jason Nolan?
Yes.
Francie Miller?
Yes. Up next is discussion for approval of the MOU for assistant wrestling coach.
Okay, so last month, the board approved an intergovernmental agreement with D-Lan Weldon, which included the addition of wrestling, which would be hosted by D-Lan Weldon starting the next school year. D-Lan Weldon has also hired a coach. Our proposal tonight includes adding a stipend via an MOU for an assistant wrestling coach position for Blue Ridge. This person would be responsible to transport the students to D-Lan Weldon for all wrestling activities, as well as to assist with the coaching responsibilities. In working with union leadership, we have examined stipend rates throughout the CBA at the high school level, assistant coach positions, and we have agreed upon bringing this to you. The initial rate of pay for the assistant wrestling coach position at the high school would be 5% of the base 1 salary number. And after the 3rd year, or at the 3rd year, it would be 7%, and then in the 6th year, move up to 9%. So that is the already agreed upon information from the union, and that's coming to you for your approval as well.
Any comments or questions? If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with BRFT to add an assistant wrestling coach position effective the 2025-2026 school year as presented. Sig?
Second.
Jason?
David Harris?
Yes.
Jonathan Larson?
Yes.
Josh Hahn?
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle?
Yes.
Jason Nolan?
Yes.
Sig Inger?
Yes.
Francie Miller?
Yes. Up next, we have review for approval, the 2023-24 annual financial report, shared service report, and fiscal efficiency form.
As of 6 o'clock this morning, I was informed that that would not be ready for this evening. So we are scheduling a committee meeting for Monday. That date would be the May 19th, tentatively for 5 p.m. Checking my email right now. I don't have anything back from the auditor yet, but our hope would be that we can have 2 finance members there. Sig is able to attend, Jonathan Yeagle is able to attend, Mr. Payton's able to attend. I'll also be inviting Kara Wallace to attend, and hopefully that will be the final time we talk about a date and time for that meeting.
Okay, so nothing to vote on that this time. Up next, we have Press 118, first reading. So Jonathan, this is what the policy committee does.
Okay, so press 118. There are quite a few, as you can see, listed on your agenda, quite a few policies that are there. The first time that we do a press reading, we never ask for board approval. Thank you, APs. Thank you, Jacqueline. We don't ask for approval on the first round. It's a time for everybody to read through, and as Francie had said, there will be notes like on the corner of each policy page that starts. They're not in numerical order. They're always in a crazy order. It's a little bit difficult to navigate, but what we did this time to try to set Mr. Payton up for success, we have many policies. This is a little bit off target, but it's related. We have policies all throughout our employee handbook. Previously, those policies were embedded without titles and without policy numbers. And so when we got press updates, we didn't know to update the employee handbook. So last year, we took the time painstakingly to go back and identify where those relationships were. We added in policy titles into our employee handbook where they were appropriate, and we added in the numbers. We added those into the table of contents, and now I have a list of all the policies that are listed in the employee handbook in the order in which they appear, which is not numerical order, and then sorting those out numerically. Now we have a list of them in numerical order. So then when press comes, and we have press 118, this entire list is typed up. Christy has to put it into board book. I put it into Ryan's new document so we can see all the press numbers that are being updated. We can see what the title is, and then we can take notes next to it to see who needs to do what. So at our last AC meeting, or the one before this one, we went through the entire document. Anywhere there was a place where we just needed to give an admin reminder, we did. If there was somebody that was assigned to a job, then that was done as well. Like today, our district ILT met, and Andrea and I had met prior to that since she couldn't attend. We talked about a new policy that we have to have for artificial intelligence, and we have to review it every year, and we have to train our teachers, and we have to train our students on that. So that's something that we don't just say, oh, good, hope it happens, but we actually have a plan in place to make that happen. So that's the work that goes on behind the scenes. So then when I have notes there that say in the corner, oh, we need more work on this, we need more work on that, I'm doing that behind the scenes, and then hopefully by the time the second month comes around, I can say, yep, it's all done, we're good to go. If we've had any other questions, then I can ask the attorney in between board meetings, and we can get those answered. So we have one outstanding question was the AI policy, which I think we have a handle on as of today. The other piece was cell phone language inside one of our policies talks about, we already know at the high school that cell phones are not to be used during classroom time. Right now, they currently have the ability, they're on the person still, so they could be used during passing periods. They could be used at lunchtime. The policy says, it talks about specifically schools can give permission for kids to use them at lunchtime. It doesn't talk about passing periods. I want to make sure we're not doing, like that little slight change of language is not going to cause us a problem. So that's something that we're working on. Already at the high school for next year, Mr. Easter referred to, maybe in this meeting, or maybe it was across the hall. Okay, across the hallway, we talked about how cell phone policy for the high school is going to involve what I would call a calculator caddy, what somebody else calls a shower caddy, hanging up in a classroom where students will put their phones when they come in. So if there was an emergency, they would be able to, grab that device if they had to jump out the window for safety or for some other reason. But that will be a change. But that means that phone would be with them during passing periods. That's a 3-minute passing period. Is a lot going to happen in 3 minutes? I don't have a problem with somebody having their phone on a passing period, but that's still some discussion that has to happen. We have to decide, is that so minuscule that it doesn't really matter and that policy language is okay, or do we want to change it, and are we allowed to change it, and how do we change it? All that stuff has to happen before this is brought back to you for final approval. So that's kind of what's going on so far. So right now you have to do nothing other than read. So great. Enjoy.
Okay, any questions on that?
Asked any questions lately, so all right, so the policy changed now. Are we going to be, is the question whether or not we're going to be compliant with our current policy, or are we?
The new policy talks about, it gives permission for a school district to say, yes, you can have phones
during
at lunchtime.
lunch.
This building is the one building that doesn't say you have to have them in your locker all day.
Yeah.
4 through 8, that was new for them this year, that it was to be in the locker all day long.
It did work out well too, right, Bert? Big improvements there. Just saying. I'm kind of a fan of the off and away. Just saying. I'll let you guys work on that, though.
Yeah. Yeah. There are other schools that are also buying the, like, secure pouches that are locked up, and then you have to figure out where do they stay. How do you get them at dismissal? To me, that's nonsense. I don't like that option. So it's either going to be on their person and not being used, and every teacher has to follow the policy the same way, or we have to go back to being a locker community, and they have to lock them up in there. That would be a big change for the high school. Is big change a bad thing? No, but we have to look at how we're going to be most successful. You know, and what's the point? We want them to attend to academics. That's the point. I don't think we're having a lot of problems with, you know, phone drama this year. I'm not hearing that. That's kind of, yeah, I know. Sorry. When I was a building administrator in a different district, in a different life probably, that's when cell phones were new and kids were stealing them. You know, then we don't have that problem anymore because they realize they won't do them any good past a couple minutes, you know. So now the problem, you know, we're not having the same amount of drama on phones that we did because that's just kind of going in a different direction right now. So
I'd say the issues we have are that kids feel the draw, like they have to be on them all the time. You know, they have to know who's commenting on their Instagram page or whatever. If with them in the caddies, they'll get used to not having that draw, is my hope. Yeah, that 3 minutes in between, that gives them a chance to, oh, I forgot I got to message my mom about this, or, you know, I need her. It gives them that opportunity to do that, but 3 minutes and then they got to be in their next class, and the expectation is, you know, put it back in there and you're done with it. I believe that will accomplish the goal that we want them to be engaged in classes. That to me is the biggest thing. And high school kids, they're a little bit older. They're a little bit. We want to teach them responsibility. I think the other thing we see is that kids disappear. They get a bathroom pass and they disappear for 15 minutes to the bathroom. Well, the phone's in the caddy. I'm thinking the bathroom pass times are going to get diminished quite considerably. So I think there's some positives to that, and yet there's still autonomy. They still have some grown-up responsibility with that. We'll see. Go somewhere.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, up next is discussion for approval, letting bids for district milk.
this is the best thing for the whole year. So we have to go out for milk bids. Otherwise, our kids aren't going to be drinking milk next year. So we just need somebody to make that motion so we can go out for bids, please.
Sig, do you have any questions?
No strawberry.
Can we substitute water? It's cheaper. Just get it from the fountain.
Sorry, Ryan.
If not, I need a motion and a second to approve letting bids for district milk products supplied to Blue Ridge Community Unit School District Number 18 for the 2025-2026 school term as presented. Sig, Jonathan Yeagle. Oh, all in favor? Sorry. Aye. Anyone opposed to milk? Sig, 6-1. Up next, we have discussion for approval of the tentative fiscal year 25 budget amendment.
Okay, so you see forms in front of you. That's what a budget looks like when I'm working on creating it, just looking at every account line item, some with easy to read codes and some with not so easy to read codes, what we budgeted, what we're changing it to, what our activity was, what's left over. Basically, we knew from early on that we were going to have to do an amendment. It doesn't happen every year. Some districts choose to amend their budget every year, so their board doesn't ask a question when it happens every once in a while. We just do it when we need it. Fund 30, I made an accident when I put our expenditures in for Fund 30, which is our bond and interest. I missed part of the interest. It's not a financial problem for us. We have money in the account. It was levied for properly. I just put the wrong number in the cell. So we had to do an amendment for that. Anytime you spend anything over what was budgeted in the expenditures for any of the 9 funds, you have to do an amendment. So we're in the process of doing that. Kara and I work on that together, and you have that draft information. These are the documents that we look at to make the decision of what that final fund expenditure number should be for 10 through 90, and we have to do that a little bit in advance of the fiscal year closing because we have to be able to tell you that by June. This month is just the trial look at it, and then I will tomorrow ask Christy to put into the newspaper that we're going to have a budget hearing. So that means 6:50 before the June board meeting. We will come in, we'll see if anybody wants to come and join us, and then I'll talk about why we had to amend the budget, and hopefully you'll approve it that evening. So right now, all you're doing is giving me approval to place the budget on display for 30 days, in other words, like these papers, and then we put it in the newspaper.
Any questions? Okay. If not, I need a motion and a second to approve the resolution to place the tentative amended budget for 2024-2025 on display in the Office of the Superintendent, District Office 411 North John Street, Farmers City, Illinois, 61842, for 30 days for review by the public. Jason? Josh?
Yes. Jonathan Yeagle.
Yes.
Jason Nolan.
Yes.
Sig Engler.
Yes.
David Harris.
Yes.
Francie Miller.
Yes. Up next is the discussion for approval of O&M summer workers.
We typically ask for our summer helpers. That approval happened a month or 2 ago. There's been a lot of projects that have come up across the district that we would like to see if you would be willing to allow us to hire up to 2 staff members for 3 days a week. Those would be 8-hour shifts. Rusty gave you examples of planned outdoor tasks that could be done by, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, maybe by a less skilled worker than having our O&M staff be working on that. This is a prime time for them to do a lot of projects that require space with no kids. We want them to be able to have the time to do that with our HLS list being long and other project lists being long. So if others could be willing to help outside and doing some of the painting things, that would be very helpful. Custodians have a full summer with the deep clean, and they also team up to do all of the floor resurfacing. Throughout the district. So they're all going to be busy. So if you'd allow us to have a little bit more help, that would be appreciated. We will post for it and hopefully ask you to fill those next month.
Okay, any questions?
How will it be posted?
How will it be posted? Christy does that, and that goes internally. We would just look at our own employees to see if we had somebody who had like that summertime. For example, sometimes secretaries apply for those positions and sometimes paraprofessionals apply. Maybe a bus driver would want to do that when they don't have other work during the summer.
And who will ultimately do the hiring?
Rusty would meet with them, and then he would make a recommendation to me, and then it would come to you.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there a rough number as far as what they're willing to spend on it or what they're wanting to spend on it? Where do we start out salary-wise for this?
Oh, we would look at the sub-custodian rate
Okay.
and use that for the hourly rate.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I need a motion and a second to create 2 3-day-per-week summer 2025 custodial positions for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Yeagle? Jason? My spot is a little, like Jonathan Yeagle does not. Yes. Okay, up next is discussion for approval of natural gas renewal.
Okay, so the district has been working with Chris Landstrom, the president of Twin City Energy, for many, many years, and he gives us renewal information when our contract is about to expire, which it will at the end of June of this current year. And so we've been talking for a couple weeks, and what looks like the best deal right now, he is suggesting that we go for either a 24 or 36 month variable rate program. He does believe that rates will be coming down in the next years, and he thinks it's wise to go in this direction. So we are looking at NICOR accounts that would be combined with Constellation for Farmer City, and then it's Ameren accounts that we would use for with Constellation for Mansfield. And so what we're looking for you to approve, the best deal right now is to go with Constellation, and the variable rate, I'm suggesting we do a 24-month contract instead of 36. That way we see what's going on 24 months from now, and we don't tax Mr. Payton with having to do this a year from now. We give him another year under this contract before he has to make that decision. Hey, I try.
Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve locking in energy rates under the 24-month term with Constellation on the NGI Index variable rate program for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 beginning July 2025 as presented. And I have the motion by David. I need a second. Sid.
Yes.
Jason Miller,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Dave Engler,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Vaughn,
Yes.
Francine Miller.
Yes. And next is community eligibility provision.
Okay, this is known as CEP, and it's something that we work with the State Board of Education. We have a formula, I believe we have attached a picture on page 2075 of some work that I believe Christy and Tanya did together to determine if we are eligible to look at the community eligibility provision, which means every single student would receive free meals for the whole entire year for breakfast and lunch. Some districts choose to offer that when it's not that much of a financial loss for them. For us, it would continue to be a significant loss financially. So Tanya and I are recommending that we would continue with how we price meals right now. Some students pay the full price. Some, when they're eligible, they pay the reduced price. And if somebody's eligible for free, then their meals would be free. And if that's the decision that you go with, you don't need any motion.
Any comments? Okay. If not, I need a motion and a second to move from open session to closed session for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district at 8:36. Sig. Yeagle.
Yes.
Dave Engler,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Jonathan Larson,
Yes.
Josh Vaughn,
Yes.
Jonathan Yeagle,
Yes.
Francine Miller.
Yes.